Hi, Nicholas Evans here. This week on the Chattering Hour, I'm joined by our producer Chris Rowe, and we chat about some of our favourite moments from season 3. As well as running the highly successful Chris Rowe Management for nearly 20 years, Chris is an award-winning screenwriter and film director, most recently working on A Tale of Two Sisters, starring Tracy Lords. Chris, thank you very much indeed for joining me here today.
Well, Nick, it's kind of like coming back to a family reunion. We do this ever so often. Actually, I do this more than I've ever done family reunions. I've never been fond of them. You sit there and you look at the family members and they're like, oh my God, so good to see you. And then, as they walk away, they're like, he's gained a lot of weight. They're going through marital problems. I've heard through friends that so-and-so is. It's just the whole thing. I've always detested family reunions.
It's very weird, isn't it, considering the year and a half that we had where family reunions have basically been happening over Zoom. It's going to be very strange when people are actually in the same room together.
I actually prefer family reunions by Zoom because I can exit very quickly.
Yeah. Sorry, we lost the connection. Sorry. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for joining me again today. And so we're just going to have a quick review of some of the fabulous guests I've had the great joy of chatting with. And of course, our first guest on season 3 was Bill Moseley.
Bill is, I always get excited talking about Bill for a few reasons. We have the same birthday. Our birthday is on November 11th. So we always, we'll send each other notes and that sort of thing. But Bill is this incredible story. I mean, unbelievably intelligent man. And most people don't realize that he, went to Yale and he has this incredibly successful lineage there going to school. And to some, I suppose that would be considered, what? You want to be an actor? You're in Yale, but you want to be an actor. Bill's great, and it's certainly what he's contributed to the genre is immeasurable. But what I don't think people realize, and this is the curse of suddenly finding a home in the genre, be it horror, be it science fiction, once you get typecast, it's hard to get out. Bill's a really good actor. And people don't realize how long he's been working. He's been working for a long, long time. Starting out in bit parts, going back to 84 or something like that. Then he kind of, I don't remember seeing him for a bit. And then suddenly he was on an HBO show called Carnival in the early 2000s when HBO was really starting to change. Their whole quality and format and the type of programming they did changed. And Bill had a small recurring on that. And I thought that was great. And then, of course, House of a Thousand Corpses hit, and then everything changed. So very happy to have Bill on, always happy to see him. And he's a good guy. He's a good guy to talk to. And I think he's just a good human being. He's a musician, he's all of those things, and it's always fun to see what he's doing.
Yeah, I was absolutely fascinated. I had no idea about his background until I came to do the research and chat with him. I think, like you, what I find fascinating about Bill is, like, rather than the House of the Thousand Corpses, I'm thinking of Chop Top in Texas Chainsaw. And I found that story about how he actually got that role fascinating. But you will watch him as Chop Top, and then you watch him later on in The Devil's Carnival. directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, one of our other guests. But the vulnerability that Bill showed in that part in Devil's Carnival, I thought was extraordinary. He's just a really, really wide-ranging actor.
He is, and I would love to see Bill. Certainly not that he hasn't had a career, because he has, but I'd love to see Bill get a real serious role, something that's completely out of the genre, and something that completely could really showcase him and his talents, because he's quite good, and he deserves that.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see more from him down the road. We will. He works all the time. He isn't going anywhere.
No, thank heavens. And our next guest, again, another man with a very long and fascinating and very diverse career, as well as Julian Sands. From romantic comedy to horror to whatever, naked lunches, extraordinary career.
Julian plays the suave, debonair Englishman so well, and he plays the creepy British guy so well. And what's great is when you take creepy British guy merged with suave, debonair Englishman, and you put them together, you get something really unique. And that's Julian. Julian, we are very good friends, and I'm very proud to have him as a friend. I've often said, who needs a publicist when you have Julian Sands? Because he really forever has spoken so highly of me and my company, and we've had a really good relationship for 10, 12 years. And I remember saying to Julian some years back that I felt that he was going to have a massive resurge. I said, I just feel like you're going to have a big resurge. Oh, darling, I don't know. I said, I have a feeling you're going to. And then all of a sudden, the tides turned and work started to pick up. And I think in a way, it's all because of streaming and how things changed in terms of platforms needing content. Suddenly, he just started to work all the time, and he works all the time. And when he's not filming a movie or doing an episodic, he's doing a stage performance of some kind. He's doing his Pinter show. He's doing a reading. He is, I never know, like he'll call me and he's like, oh, darling, I'm in Geneva. And then, a couple of weeks later, oh, I'm in South Africa. And then a couple of weeks later, it's like, I never know, are you ever home? You never call me when you're in LA, because, oh, darling, when I get back. And then, of course, we never hook up. I'm gone. So, yeah, he's great. A lot of great memorable performances, certainly. Warlock films to start it off. Arachnophobia. Stephen King's Rose Red. Always really, really good supporting lead characters. And then great stuff, too. I mean, romantic comedies like you discussed.
Room with a View, yeah.
Room with a View and The Killing Fields. And I mean, I wish we had time to talk, because he and John Malkovich are great, great friends. They're best friends. And I've got some great stories. I spent a weekend with John Malkovich. I stayed with him at his home in France a few years ago. And I just have to say this because it's so Julian to do this. So I said to Julian, I feel like I need to bring John something. And I said, I don't know what to bring him. I said, what do I bring John Malkovich? And he was like, oh, darling, bring him a good Pinot Noir. And I went, okay. So I'm running all over the village in Spain, Sitges, Spain, trying to find the most expensive bottle of Pinot that I can find. And I'm going from shop to shop to shop. And I finally find this like €100 bottle, best I could find. I buy it. I see this cheese shop. I buy this beautiful tray of cheeses. And then I go to France the next morning and I give it to John when I arrive. He sends a driver to pick me up at the airport. beautiful drive through the Provence area of France to his home. I give it to him and he's like, oh, thank you. And John Malkovich cooks for me for like several days, he and his partner, his wife. And finally, you know, each night that goes by, he's not opening up my bottle of wine. And I'm thinking, oh, fuck, Julian, what did you do? I've insulted this man. And finally, John says, he goes, oh, let's open up that bottle of wine. And we open it. We have this great time. And then he goes, come down to the wine cellar. And I go down to the wine cellar and it's just wine everywhere. What I didn't realize and what Julian neglected to tell me was, for as far as you can see around around John Malkovich's home is wine vineyards, and he owns it all. So I called Julian from London. I then went to London and I was like, what are you doing telling me to bring John Malkovich wine? He goes, no, I don't know, darling. It just sounded like a good thing to do. You know, that's Julian, but he's great. And, you know, it was a pleasure to have him on, and I appreciate him.
I agree entirely and echo the thing about he's such a good friend. He's always encouraging me. And again, what you're saying about, you know, best publicist ever. I mean, myself, Barbie Wilde can say the same thing. You know, we happen to give him our books, and Julian was just like, you know, within a month he's read them, give really good feedback. He said, you could do this. And he's just such an encouraging, lovely guy in terms of other people's professions and so on. Yeah, love him. Absolutely adore him. Wonderful
he's
man.
Great. And I'm always looking forward to see what he's doing. He actually has some really good things, hopefully coming out this year, late this year.
Yeah. Wonderful stuff. Now, moving on to another old friend of yours, and that's Eileen Beets.
Oh, Eileen, we go back a long, long time. You know, Eileen is she's probably my second longest client, I would say. 21 years, which is a long time. And, you know, the people often say we're like an old married couple. And in a way we are. She's a good friend of the family. She's over at the house all the time. Sometimes I just look up and she's in the house. I'm like, how did you get in the house? She goes, oh, I just walked in. I go, do you know how to ring a doorbell? But she's great. And, you know, Eileen, it just goes to show you that the size of the role is irrelevant. There are no small parts, because the part that she played, which there were several, you know, people often go, oh, she was a double. She wasn't. She was hired as a principal actress on the film. She was also hired to be Captain Howdy, which is the face of death, that you see, the subliminal face of death. And so I think for Eileen, as small of a role as it was, that image of her is all over the world. I've seen it in Italy. I've seen it in Russia. I've seen it in Spain and England, and I've seen it all over the United States, Hawaii, Mexico. I mean, it's everywhere. And so her contribution is great when it comes to that. Many actors would give anything to be in something like The Exorcist that all these years later people are talking about. So I think for Eileen, you know, what happened with her, the whole backlash with the film, was rather unfortunate, because, you know, she just wanted to be acknowledged for what she contributed. So did Mercedes McCambridge, and so did other people. It wasn't just one person who played that part. It was multiple people who played that character. And it's unfortunate that everything blew up the way it did. But she's a really good actress. Every once in a while, when I submit her for work, I'll be watching old footage when I attach it to a submission. And I just sit back and I look at some of that work from the late 70s and early 80s, and I just go, wow, that was so incredible. So, she's the queen of screams, as she likes to call herself. And she's, Eileen just loves to work. She goes from project to project, and you never know what she's going to be in.
Yeah, well, I find it, yeah. She's always doing something. I always think her name cropping up on stuff, and some really interesting independent films in particular. I thought it was fascinating talking to her about her earlier career as well. Again, stuff I had no idea about, like the fact she'd worked with Anthony Perkins, and she was in David Holtzman's Diary, a film I'd not heard of, but it was fascinating. And again, such great stories.
Well, David Holtzman's Diary, I mean, many still consider it to be one of the most important independent films ever made. It usually always comes up on the top 25 list. And she's very lucky to kind of hit her mark on a handful of things. Again, if you're an actor, you're lucky to ever be in one thing that kind of goes with time. She's been in several, and so she's getting ready to fly to Eugene, Oregon, to do a new movie called Death with Dignity. And I always laugh because these titles of these films, I mean, some of them are brilliant, and some of them are the most bizarre, crazy ass things that you've ever heard of. So I always say to her, depending upon the title, depends upon if I will talk about
it. Seems like a sensible attitude. Yeah, okay.
I think so.
Yeah. No, another lady I really enjoyed talking to and found fascinating for the depths of the story and what she revealed during the interview was Tamara Glenn. And as I enjoyed, it was actually quite a tough interview at times because of the stuff we were talking about. But how do you know Tamara?
She's a client, and she didn't, she left the business for a long time. She took care of her mother. She took care of that. And I think anyone who's been in that position where they've had to take care of a family member, it's a full-time job, and it's just something that you have to do 100%. And so she took that time, did that. And I think had she stayed in Hollywood, had she done what so many others did during that time, her career would have been much larger. But, I think 8 years ago, someone found her on Facebook, and they were like, do you have any idea, we've been searching for you forever. And she's like, why? Why have you been searching for me? She really wasn't aware of the fandom around Halloween. I mean, she certainly knew it was a successful franchise, but she didn't really know of the fandom. She's living in Arkansas, kind of detached from the real world. And coming back into it has been very, very, I think, rewarding for her. It's nice. A lot of people who leave and try to come back can't. But when you've got that one thing that helps pull you back into it, that makes it a whole lot of a smoother journey. And I think for Tamara, I think she's so much more than just horror genre. She's quite good. I see her auditions when they come in, and they're excellent. I think her choices are excellent. And I look forward to kind of being with her on this journey to see what new adventures she can do, what new roles, what new genres she can get into. But I found her interview to be really not new in terms of, we've heard it, what goes on in the business. But I thought it was, very brave of her to go there and to talk about it and to reveal these things. I think it's tough, and I think it's become easier, certainly, for women to be able to talk now, because they feel like they have a voice. There's not one, but it's many. And I think that by doing it, it almost becomes like a therapy session, because now you're starting to talk and get it out, and sometimes deal with things you haven't dealt with in many, many years. So I found her interview to be really, it was really heartfelt, and it was really, it was real, you know, and you got to see a different side of her. So I'm looking forward to seeing what she will do next. She's a delight. Fans love to see her. So, hey, I remember her in Halloween 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in high school. I remember her very well.
Yeah, really lovely lady, and an absolutely fascinating interview. Another person I really enjoyed talking to, for very different reasons, particularly because I managed to get him to quote Shakespeare for me, and that was John Franklin.
I love John. John has been a client for 16 years, and he's great, and I love him, and he's that great career that he's had. I mean, he's had a really interesting career because he's done, you know, film and TV, and then of course he went on and left the business for a while to teach, also a writer, and he's just funny. John is incredibly funny, and I often think that John, if John were coming into the business now, last 5-7 years, and had that rush of success that he had in his very early career, that his career probably would have really gone on to really do some big things, because he's good. He's really good. And I love sitting there. I was with John not too long ago in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and you know, listening to him recite Shakespeare and do his thing. I mean, he's an entertainer, he's a performer, and I enjoy our friendship. The last a couple of years, I know it's been very rough for him because he lost his husband and to cancer, and it was a real difficult time for him. So I'm happy to see him kind of coming out of COVID, and all of this stuff happened during COVID to him, and it was, you know, what a horrible time. And now he's out, and he's back amongst everyone, and we've all missed him and love him. So, but yeah, I mean, I just watched Children of the Corn on the big screen with John, Courtney, and Fritz Kiersch, the director. And oh my God, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed watching it. They did a live commentary to the movie, the three of them, while it was playing. And it was just great because they all had very different stories, and they all learned things that they never knew. And that's what I thought was the most incredible, was Courtney, John, Fritz. They all learned things that they just never knew, even though it's been all these years. So he's got that. He's got Cousin It. Again, if you're lucky enough as an actor to have one thing that you're known for or remembered for, you're lucky. He has two, and he has Cousin It. I watch people line up for hours, you know, just to meet him. So not a bad thing, not a bad way to spend your retirement as a teacher.
No, absolutely not. Our next guest is a kind of a very different part of his career. He's kind of at the beginning of his career, though he's been acting for a long time, and is very established, and that's Lawrence Cow, who was just charming and delightful to talk with. Lawrence,
really great things will continue to happen for Lawrence, I booked him his very first television job. It was an episode of Franklin and Bash, which starred Malcolm McDowell, and it was a television series for TNT. And if every client that I had the dedication, the work ethic, the discipline as Lawrence, my hair would probably grow back and probably change colors to dark again. Lawrence is the perfect client. He doesn't complain. He does what he needs to do. If he's got to get on a plane and go somewhere, he does it. And I've watched the trajectory of his career, and it's done exactly what it should have done. And you watch the early stuff that he did on The Walking Dead. Even though it was a small part, you knew this was a good actor. And then what he did on Sleepy Hollow, he did a couple of episodes of Sleepy Hollow, and he did 5 episodes of the originals. And we wanted more money, and so then they killed him off. So that ended the originals for him. And then even The Purge, he did a couple of episodes of The Purge right before the pandemic hit. And he's just great. And I look forward to see what he does. This new venture for him, Woo Assassins, for Netflix. He was quite good in the show. And so now it's spawned a movie, and he's been in Thailand, or spent the first 4 months of the year in Thailand filming. And as much as I know Lawrence, I'm still learning about him all the time. We had lunch yesterday, but you know, through the years, all the auditions that have come in is like, Lawrence, can you play a flute? Oh yeah, no problem. Can you play a violin? Sure. Lawrence, can you play a saxophone? Yeah, I'll see if I can find my saxophone in the garage. Then in Woo Assassins, there's this incredible scene where he just goes all out on the piano, and I'm watching him, and I feel like this proud dad. I had a get together at my house for the season premiere of it, and all of us who attended, we just all sat there and watched, because it was the perfect kind of arc for an actor, doing every type of emotion, and doing everything from martial arts to piano playing. I mean, he sings, he's a professional dancer. So I think there's a lot of great things ahead for him. He's got a very, very fine future ahead of him. And I'm very proud to have him as a client and a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so impressed. I remember watching, because he got a lot of his show reels up on his website, and just being impressed by the range of emotion that he manages to play, and the differences in the characters. And I particularly like yourself, I really enjoyed him in Woo Assassins, because I think it's a complex character to play. He does an amazing job on it. Really wonderful. Another talented actor who I had known about and was really interested to interview simply based on his performance in one film, and it was and that was Lou Temple. And Unstoppable is the film, because he's only got a small, there is no such thing as a small actor, small parts. Great actor. You only see, his amount of screen time is really minimal, but you know exactly who this character is and what this whole history, just based on a few lines in 1 or 2 scenes to begin with. Extraordinary, man.
It's a great supporting role. I think he shot on that forever. And it was directed by Tony Scott, I believe. And no, Lou's great. And what I love about Lou is, again, this interesting career before he started doing anything with Hollywood. I mean, professional baseball, and so to kind of see the journey of his life, and then he ends up doing acting. And what I love about Lou is he is such a specific type. He is a good old boy. He plays a good old boy. When you see him walking down the street with his cowboy hat and his button-up shirt and blazer and cowboy boots, that's him. So when you see him on the screen, it's the same thing. When he gets a chance to play those, obviously Rob Zombie loves him. Rob uses him a lot. And like a good chameleon, when he takes off the cowboy hat, cowboy boots, he morphs into another character. And Lou is another one. He had a great run on The Walking Dead. He's done all of those Rob Zombie films. There will be more to come. And he's just a really good talent. Another person that I think, given the opportunity to do something other than genre, he's a really great character. And also a survivor. He got leukemia. They thought he was going to die. And he spent a long time in the hospital, I think in 2000. And so to still be doing what you love and doing it well. And it was a pleasure to have him. I haven't, he was producing something a few years ago, and he hired Malcolm McDowell from me and for it. And it was great to see him again, because I don't think I had actually seen Lou since we were on the 31 set together, Rob's 31. And he was running around in that crazy makeup.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember being on set and this crazy looking character comes up with green hair and this chainsaw and all of that. And I didn't know who it was. I didn't know who it was. And he walks up, he goes, "Hey, Chris, how you doing?" And I was like, "Lou?" You're, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating actor. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Our next guest was obviously very close to home as far as I'm concerned. And that was Paul T. Taylor, who had the unenviable task of taking over the role of Pinhead. He didn't directly take over from Doug, but it was a really interesting conversation to talk with Paul about just what's involved for an actor to take on such an iconic role.
Yeah, I certainly didn't envy him. I mean, those are pretty big shoes to fill. I mean, it's a little different. Like a Michael Myers, for example, is different. You can pretty much put anyone in a mask and a bloody, dirty overalls or one of those zip up suits. And it doesn't matter because he doesn't say anything. He doesn't do anything except kill people. But in the case of Pinhead, Doug Bradley has played that character for so long, and then suddenly to have someone else come in, and I believe the overall what am I trying to say? Those are just big shoes to fill. When you look at all the other people who's played Michael Myers, maybe Nick Castle, because Nick has now played him several times, but for the most part, it's, but the Freddy Krueger, Robert, and Doug, when you think of people who have kind of stayed with the franchise for a length of time, that's what you think about. And I thought it was, it's a pretty gutsy, ballsy thing to do. And I thought that he really shared with us all his story. And I thought, but I think he's done some great stuff, and he's a huge fan. He's a huge genre fan. He has a huge collection of memorabilia and stuff. So I'm sure that was probably one of the, personal reasons to do it when you get to play something like that you really love so much. But I would be a little intimidated by it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too.
Entirely. And I would be incredibly intimidated. So, but he did it, and now he's moved on.
Yeah. So our next guest was, you've already mentioned him, Fritz Kiersch. And it was absolutely fascinating to me to hear, having spoken to both John Franklin and Courtney Gaines about their experience in the audition room, to hear the director's take on that. You're alluding earlier to them revealing things when they were watching it together. A lovely man, and so energetic. I am so in awe of his energy, and he's the fact that he's still working and creating stuff.
Yeah, he's, I think he's pretty underrated. I think that he should have gone off to have a really successful career. He's a really good guy. And, the story of how he ended up getting that movie is almost only in Hollywood does that sort of thing happen. I mean, it's just like, hey, you want to do a movie? That's kind of what it was like. Oh, come on, let's go have a meeting. Do you want to do it? Here, do it. But again, you can do as a director an entire life worth of films and none of them be remembered like that little tiny horror film that you did, will be remembered. It's kind of comical. I mean, you know, I know people who have Oscars, who have Oscar nominations, Globe nominations, Globes. People remember that little minuscule movie that they did, you know, 40 years ago, and go, "Oh, did he win an Oscar? I didn't know that." Or did she get something? Oh, I don't recall. And that's really the truth. I remember listening to an actor one time. He's dead. I won't mention his name, but he was an asshole. And he was sitting there at a show, and he was, you know, being kind of pompous and arrogant. He was like, "I don't understand why, you know, all these people are just walking past my table. I've done all this legitimate work." And I stopped and I said, "What, do you think horror isn't legitimate? Then why are you here? You're here at a convention. You're making money off of people. Why is it not legitimate?" He goes, "Yeah, but I've been in Oscar nominated films." And I went, "They don't care about that. They truly don't care." Because he had all these pictures of other things that he had done. No one cared. They really didn't. And at the end of the day, it was about that one film that he did in 1985. And that's all people cared about. And that's not to discount all the great work that he had done, but the fans cared about that one movie. And it just goes to show you what a good film, you know, will last a lifetime. So in Fritz's case, you know, having Corn, Children of the Corn, as his kind of cream of the crop, so to speak, film isn't such a bad thing, because he's certainly going down in the history books.
Yeah, 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 and a really, really fascinating conversation. As was the last lady that I spoke to in the series, and again, we talk about actors doing things for themselves and really just saying, "Okay, well, you know, nobody's casting me. Okay, I'm going to go out and do something myself." And in this case, I'm talking about Naomi Grossman and her solo shows. Just lovely, lovely lady to chat to. Such extraordinary, again, energy and stories as well.
Yeah, great story. I'm a member of the Television Academy, which, you know, does the Emmy Awards, and that's, I think, where I first met Naomi. She was doing some kind of an FYC event, which is for your consideration when it comes Emmy season. And I had watched American Horror Story, and I thought her portrayal of Pepper was just really, really good. In fact, had she been a bigger name at the time, she probably would have gotten an Emmy. Might have even gotten at least a nomination for it. I thought her work was incredible. She transformed herself. She's a chameleon, you know, she's totally down to do that. And she's got a wicked energy. It's fabulous. And I always enjoy seeing her at the Emmy events, you know, if she's there campaigning for something that she's in, or she's there supporting other people. She's really, she's come a long way. I mean, in that very early part of her career, she did what all actors do, struggle, you know, and doing little bit parts here and there. And then all of a sudden, something breaks. And getting into the Ryan Murphy camp isn't such a bad thing. And she's done that. She's worked on, I believe, 3 of the American Horror Story shows. And then American Horror Stories, this new kind of, I don't want to call it a spin-off series, but it's sort of like that. Yeah, so I'm always looking forward to seeing what she's doing in the future, and I'm sure we'll bump into each other at another Emmy event once we can do those again. And it was really fun for us to spend an episode kind of talking about what previous guests were up to and what projects they had done. Some of them spoke about some of their projects when they were interviewed. obviously Malcolm McDowell is working all the time. He's on a new series up in Canada right now for the some of the producers of Schitt's Creek. It's a new show called Son of a Critch, and it's based off of a best-selling book. He's shooting up in Newfoundland. Tracy Lords, she did this fabulous work playing one of our earlier female serial killers, and in The Farm. And what she shot was basically a sizzle, but the investors saw it immediately and went, we got to do this, and so she's doing that. Daniel Roebuck's working all the time, so it's great to kind of go back and look and see what people are doing and catch up with them. So we'll have to do that again, and as always, I have to thank you for all your hard work. I mean, look, I feel like the playground teacher, and the kids come up and tell me who's being nice on the playground and who's not. And they always have good things to say about Nick. They always have really beautiful compliments, and that most importantly, they feel comfortable talking to you, because you won't get people like Tamara and Courtney and Lynn Shay and Courtney Gaines and Lynn Shay opening up and really talking if they don't feel comfortable doing it. Malcolm McDowell still to this day says how much he enjoyed your interview, because you did your research, you know your stuff, and you're charming to talk to. You're not boring, and that makes all the difference when you're talking to someone who's been asked the same question hundreds of times. As we do this interview right now, Malcolm McDowell is doing 50th anniversary press junket for Clockwork Orange. And I can tell you right now, he would rather be on with us than doing that press junket all day, talking about the film that he's going to be asked the same questions over and over and over again. And it's not going to be fun. And you do a brilliant job. So thank you as always. Thank you to all of our staff and everyone who kind of keeps things going, as dysfunctional as it can get sometimes. And, look forward to what will be in store for next season.
Mm, yeah. Well, thank you very much indeed, Chris. And obviously, it kind of goes without saying that those who don't know, Chris does finds all the guests for the show, gives me these wonderful questions to kick off the conversation, and points me in the right direction for doing all my research. So thank you, sir.
Thank God you're 8 hours ahead. I have more time.
Yeah, there is always that as well. As you say, we'll be back for season 4 in October the 14th. I think October the 14th, with some more great guests from the worlds of horror, thriller, and suspense. So I hope people are going to join us then. To make sure you don't miss out on those shows, consider subscribing to Chris's YouTube channel, or if you're listening on a podcast, subscribing to that. And of course, please hit the like buttons, because that really helps spread the word for the show. Chris.
Like us, really like us.
Yes. Yeah, like us.